Hello, everyone, and welcome to APL Falcons UK. This week, Cal and I are joined by Mark and Rich to run it down with Stone Sour's very own Josh Rand about the Falcons. So we're going to go through a little bit about Josh's career, how he got into the Falcons, what he thought of last season, and everything like that, the highs and the lows. So, Josh, firstly, thank you for coming on, because there's a few of us here that are huge fans and have seen you live and everything like that. So this is the weirdest collaboration we could have ever thought of in ever. So
thanks for inviting me.
I'll give the credit to Rich on this one for dropping you a DM. I think he did on Instagram to start with.
Yes, unsolicited DM. Josh, apologies about that, but when we were discussing names about who we'd like to get on, yours was very, very near the top of the list. And if you don't ask, you don't get, do you? So
absolutely.
So yeah, thank you for at least having the decency to answer me as well, and to have you on is just immense.
Oh,
it is insane.
So, hey, I'm free anytime to talk football. Talking football. I mean, come on.
I mean, for anyone that doesn't already know you, if they have a quick scroll down your Instagram, they can see that Falcons feature just as much as your music features. So we were like, yeah, it's worth the shot, without a doubt.
I've been a decade-long fan. Decades.
I believe so. I was reading when we were doing the research for this show and just getting little bits of information. I actually found an article that you did with ESPN in 2011, and it was less of an article and more of a thesis. It was huge, and you literally ran through everything, and it was just as talking about Julio and things like that at the time. It was awesome.
Well, it's an interesting story with that ESPN interview. When they approached me about doing it, was actually the way that it all fell together was crazy. For one, that day I was literally getting the new logo tattooed on me.
No way.
So basically, I was like doing the interview as I'm being tattooed. But what is even cooler for me is the team actually read it, and actually Thomas Dimitroff reached out to me, and yeah, and it was crazy. Invited me to come down and sit in his suite and watch a game that season, which actually ended up turning into like 5 or 6 seasons that I actually went down there as a guest of his. So yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was a dream. For one, to get a phone call and answer the phone, it's like, hey, this is Thomas Dimitroff. I'm like, yeah, it's one of those moments where I was hang up, somebody's messing with me. Yeah, it was awesome. And but yeah, we can dig into that and talk about whatever you guys want to. I mean, like I said,
where's the tattoo, Josh?
I have the old logo on my left leg and then the new logo on my right. So I have both logos.
What logo do you prefer, the old or new?
Well, I gotta go old.
Oh,
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Maybe my favorite uniform out of all of it is basically when I became a fan, which is the early '90s uniform, I believe. Actually, the year I really became a fan is when I think they switched from the red to the black. That '90s season. And that's probably my favorite out of all the uniforms. I do like when they wear the black jerseys and in the red helmet, like that out.
Yeah, so nice.
Yeah, that's the uniform I remember, the red helmets. I became a fan in '87. So the red helmets with the old logos with the stripe down the middle of it, proper throwback is. I think that's the way to go, definitely.
That's awesome.
Just so for the sake of any people that are watching that don't really listen to rock music and metal music and alternative, do you mind just giving us a quick overview of your music career? I know it's a little bit off topic, but just so we can.
Well, I mean, just real quick, I actually have been playing guitar for, I don't know, like 30 years now. I started out on bass and drums, then switched to guitar. Became friends and played in many bands with Corey Taylor. So we go back like 30 years. Obviously, you guys in the UK know. I mean, Slipknot came out really actually Stone Sour was first.
Yeah.
Then Corey joined Slipknot, and then Stone Sour came back. But basically been playing guitar in Stone Sour for 20 years now, I think is what literally. And I'm also working on a new project. Stone Sour is kind of on a hiatus with no set timetable for us to come back. We kind of didn't want that pressure. All of us felt like there was other stuff we wanted to try.
Yeah.
I'm doing a new band with a female vocalist. Obviously, Corey's busy doing whatever he's doing. Roy's working on some scores for movies. Christian's doing his own band, and Johnny's running a restaurant. So,
No way.
Wow.
yeah, I mean, so it's yeah, I mean, all around about. I mean, that's truly what it's been. It's just
Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to be able to do it as long as I have. It's kind of amazing. I have those moments of I can't believe that it happened, and then let alone to have it, actually get bigger than it's ever been, and for 20 years, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. Like I said, in 2018, you came over to Manchester Apollo, and I saw you live then. And I mean, I was only 2 rows back, but I was probably just one of a million faces in the crowd at the time. But the environment that your gigs have got over the years is absolutely insane. Like, they've got bigger and bigger, and the range of audience that your band bring in is absolutely huge. Like, initially, I would have presumed it would have started out as literally just pure rock and metal, but now literally everybody dips into it because of the range of music that you have. It's insane. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was really the goal when we first started, that we told kind of to ourselves that we would not have any boundaries in what we could do and want to do. I mean, and we kind of, I think with us, really what helped us out is right out of the gate, we came out and we had Get Inside and Bother at the same time. So it was like one extreme to the other. It's like we can be as heavy as anybody, but then here's Corey singing this acoustic ballad. And I think that really helped us in the sense that it allowed us to always be able to push boundaries and not be stuck in a box. And then eventually when a band is stuck in a box for a long period of time and they want to venture out, then everybody's like, what the hell happened to the band? Our fan base has always embraced us to go different directions. And so as an artist, it's been awesome to be able to do that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, on a personal note, my favorite song is 30-31-50, but that's a different conversation entirely. If anyone else has anything about the music before we jump into the Falcons, go ahead. But if not, I'll let Cal get us going.
So I've seen you a couple of times over the years, and I think for me, one of the biggest kind of shock to the system, like you said, was the contrast between like Get Inside, Bother, but also like you guys. I don't know, it's like I think it's called Through the Glass. That was actually like everywhere at one point, and to see like you say, I think it shines through the fact that you didn't put yourself in a box. But it's still kind of one of those things where I think when you've got a frontman like Corey was, who was really well known, but behind the mask sort of thing. And I remember Stone Sour doing Get Inside, and it was the first time anybody had really seen it. There wasn't that much furore around, oh, this is Corey Taylor's new band. It was, this is a new outfit. Like it was completely different at the time. And a completely different sound. So like from your perspective as a guitarist, like how did it, I know you said Stone Sour had been going a long time, but did you feel like at the time maybe you were in Corey's shadow a little bit, or like did it feel like that at the time?
It didn't feel like that at the time. I mean, like you said, I think with us, especially in the beginning, I mean, you have to think when we came out, Slipknot had come off of making the Iowa record, and that was, which is so, I mean, it's so heavy in as everybody says, is brutal. You know,
Yeah.
so, you know, when you compare us to that record, we were just still completely different from it. I don't think really, you know, there's moments, and it's hard to say that you're not gonna not have those moments where the bands kind of sound alike because we have the same front. I mean,
of course,
the same. So, but I think for the most part, when you go over the entire catalog and not just necessarily the songs that both bands release as singles, we're really different from one another. I mean,
massive.
like I said, there's moments where you're like, yeah, you know, that might be a little Stone Sour-ish, or that might be a little Slipknot-ish, but like I said, when you have the same voice for both bands, it's kind of hard not to. But I don't necessarily. I mean, it's hard to say whether or not we were in the shadow of it. I mean, because you could flip it around and say, honestly, what a great jump start for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it feel like liberating?
For Stone Sour, it's like, you know, what I always get asked is because I've only played in Stone Sour up until this new project that I'm working on. So for me, and a lot of my peers get jealous because it's like, well, I never had to do. I kind of just like, hey, guess what? We're playing in front of 1,000 people. That's a small show, honestly, for me in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't for me. Honestly, it was scary as hell. Crap, all this pressure was put on me. But over the years, it's just like I said, I think only if you really want to make the comparison. But like I said, you have the same voice, so you're going to have those moments.
And did I read that your next project is like quite piano heavy?
Well, it started off that way. And then I was like, okay, this was fun for a couple months, and that's really not what I do. And granted, it was all over the place, and it was more of just running with my creativity and not once again getting back to exactly like how Stone Sour started, where not being put in a box.
Yeah.
But this EP that we're putting out eventually, hopefully in the next couple months, it has the fastest song I've ever written. Wow. It has probably the most melodic song I've ever written. And I'm pretty excited about the whole overall project, but it's kind of shifted back to just, this is what I do. So, I'm going to get, I'm sure, a bunch of people saying, well, this sounds like Stone Sour, but of course, once again, it's just like Corey. I mean, I play guitar the way that I play guitar, and I write guitar. So it's really hard as a musician. And I think I speak on behalf of a bunch of guys that actually do different stuff, whether it's Head, you know, from Korn doing his other band, or perfect example is Kerry King goes, hey, my new project or my new band since Slayer retired is probably going to sound like Slayer with somebody else singing. Just, I can't change who I am as a person after 40 years.
Yeah.
So, I've kind of embraced the idea of just going, just running with the creativity and trying to do the best song and not think, well, it needs to be this and that. Which I'll circle back really quick to Stone Sour. I think the other thing that's helped us in Stone Sour is our diversity is honest. And I think that you hear that. We didn't set out to go, oh, hey, we want to have Through Glass be this big radio hit. At the time, none of us knew that song would go on and do what it did for us. Or, you know, we just always tried to play the best or write the best stuff that we possibly could. And I think when it's honest and it's not contrived, then people can relate to it and you hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
I've got to be honest that I actually didn't realise when I first started listening to Stone Sour years ago. I actually didn't realise at first it was Corey anyway, because his voice from Slipknot to Stone Sour is just so apart for me that I wouldn't have even at that time realised who it was. So, and going back to a point you were making about what you do. If you force yourself to sort of step away from what you've been doing for years, that's I think where your creativity may fall down. Not your personally, but your creativity falls apart, and you sort of lose sight of who you are and what you do. And I think I know what I'm trying to say. I do know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think you always deviate back to what you've been doing because that's what you know.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, and that's kind of what I was, where you read that, hey, I'm doing all this piano stuff and stuff. I needed that change for my creativity to grow and to kind of circle back and become more motivated and focused on doing what I actually do best, which is write guitar riffs. I mean, so yeah, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we'll wrap that bit up and move on to football. So I think Cal's going to get us started with a fun one that we read.
Well, we read about, did you try out for an arena football team?
Yes, I did in 90.
How did that come about?
Well, we ended up having an arena team come here in Des Moines in 96. They did open tryouts, and I was like, you know what? Whether I make it or not, I'm going to do it so I can say that I did it. So, and that's what I did. And I went down and, did all basically the same stuff you kind of see for the combine is what they basically did. There's really not a position for, a guy that runs the 40 in like 5 seconds and weighs 160 pounds safety. So, what would be my dream position with that being said, I have a feeling if I played the game that I would want to play, I would be that guy that would be getting fined every Monday because you just can't hit people like that anymore. I mean, all the guys I loved watching when I was growing up, I mean, it's just, and I understand it. It's for the safety. These guys now are so fast and so big. And, that was always been my dream is to play free safety, and separate the receiver from the ball is what I knew. You can't do that anymore, but so yes, that did happen. But here's the cool thing with that team. There was a quarterback that ended up coming down to play for that team by the name of Kurt Warner. Yeah, so we had a pretty good team for a couple of years. Decided to, I got to move on and I guess go win a Super Bowl and an MVP with the Rams in my rookie year.
But it must have been even just having the opportunity to try out for something like that just must have been a huge, huge buzz.
Well, it was pretty scary, but like I said, I'm not that big of a guy, so when they did this lineup basically for the secondary, it was more of a bump and run, and of course I had to line up again. It was like me against a guy that was like Julio's size. That's what it felt like. And he kind of just was like, dude, you're not putting your hands on me to slow me down. I'm just gonna remove you out of the picture. It almost looked like what Derrick Henry did to Josh Norman this last season. If you remember, if you've seen that highlight.
Yeah. Amazing.
If we move on to why, the most important question, why are you a Falcons fan? How did that become? I think Mark's really interested in this one.
I read that you were from Des Moines.
Correct. I still live here.
Oh, right. Okay. So, I obviously knew you had a relationship with Corey before. But when because I Googled it, because I was like, I didn't realize he was from Georgia. And when you weren't, I was like, I need to know the story behind this. Because, obviously, I've got family in Atlanta, so it was kind of a logical decision. And everyone else has got reasons in the UK as to why they support different teams. It might just be, I like the uniform or whatever. So I was just really interested to know how that came about.
it all came about because, and Rich will probably remember this player, Steve Barkowski.
The quarterback.
Yep. He was born in Des Moines. So for me, in the same neighborhood that I was born in. So as a kid, I always heard about, this NFL quarterback was born here. And so that was, being a kid, that was super cool to me. So I kind of just gravitated towards the team. The rest of my family are like diehard Bears fans. So I'm like the black sheep. But that's literally why. And then, of course, when I really started following it, I mean, the team at that point was exciting. I mean, you had Deion Sanders, you had Andre Rison. So, and then from there, it kind of just, that was literally it. I mean, that's why they were my team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to think if you'd have supported someone else, you'd have had the chance to support a Super Bowl winning team. You could have been the Bears, could have been Kansas or whatever, and like us, you sort of gravitated towards the perennial underachievers.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we can debate 4 years ago until we're blue in the face. I mean, we should have a ring. Thank you, Kyle Shanahan.
To be fair though, Josh, we should have had a ring in '98 as well.
That one would have been tough.
It was, but listen, we got through the playoffs though, didn't we? I mean, they were tough playoffs.
Oh yeah, I honestly about broke my mom's neck when we beat Minnesota. And he kicked a field goal, and I was like, holy crap, we're going to the Super Bowl. I jumped up, and I literally, because my mom is like 5'2", so me jumping up excited, I literally had her like in a headlock, and I'm like jumping up. But and honestly, that team, I actually watched that Minnesota team that year because obviously I'm in Iowa, so it's only 4 hours. And I could not believe that we beat that team because I was lucky enough to see that team first game of the year for them, first pro game for Randy Moss, and it was against Tampa Bay. And I remember being a super fan of obviously the secondary players. Arondé Barber was covering Randy Moss, and literally the first play, I've never seen a human being run that fast in my life. And he already had his hand up in the air, literally like 2 steps off when they hiked the ball. Like, I'm going deep, throw the ball. And he left Arondé Barber like 10 yards behind. It was insane. And I was like, they're going to be unstoppable with Chris Carter and Randy Moss and Jake Reed. And so where I'm getting at is the fact that we were able to go up to Minnesota in that game and win was unbelievable. Facing Denver in the Super Bowl, though, I mean, you got to think, you had Terrell Davis coming off of a 2,000-yard season. I mean, Elway.
Yeah.
It was a tough outing. Now, this Super Bowl 4 years ago, yeah, we should have won that one. That's not even up to debate. I mean, no.
I went to bed when we were still just about leading. It would have been about 4 a.m. in the morning here. I'd work the next day, and we were still just about leading. So I take it that we won. I don't. The last sort of few minutes, I've just totally disregarded. So as far as I'm concerned, we won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was insane. I was actually in the studio when we were recording Hydrograd. Yeah, so that was a buzzkill for all of us. And the other guys didn't care about football, but they knew how big it was for me. So I think our session ended early that day. And then a couple of weeks later, this was pretty crazy too. Tony Gonzalez actually came into the studio when we were recording, like 2 weeks, him and Bill Cowher after the Super Bowl. And he told me that he was like, I thought we won. He goes, I came from the press box and walked down and we had lost the game. He's like, I was getting ready to celebrate with all those guys. He goes, it was unbelievable.
no more.
Yeah, we got to move on from 2000.
Let's jump forward a little bit. I mean, we're not even jumping to that much better times because my next question was, what were your opinions on last season? But I don't know if I want to go there now either.
I don't know if I have an opinion. Going into it, if you would have told me that it would end the way that it did, I wouldn't have believed you. For me, the season kind of was over by week 5. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I had already realized, hey, this is what we are.
Yeah.
And the deal is if you can't protect your quarterback, you're not going to win games.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. I mean, let's look at this last Super Bowl, and Tom Brady's back there, and he's pouring a cup of tea. Looking, I'm in my 5th guy in the progression, and I still have time.
Yeah,
our guy, he hikes the ball, and it's shit. You better have it out of his hand within 2.5 seconds, or he's sacked. Because he's not going to run away from anybody. We know that, and his style of play. So with that, hopefully going into this season, that is addressed tremendously. I think like all of you probably going into it when you go, hey, we have 5 first-round guys on the offensive line, and they were that bad this year. I couldn't believe it. But I also we don't know the dynamics of what the team is also going through.
Yeah.
To me, I can kind of relate that in a band because you assume what you see, but you're not in there. So we don't know necessarily what was all going on. Obviously, we ended up, getting rid of the GM and a head coach. So this season, I'm excited to see. Well, for one, we bring in a coach that I'm a huge fan of his offensive thing. I mean, when we get back, I'm old school football. I mean, watching Derrick Henry over the last 2 seasons, just obviously you have to have a guy like that to be able to play like that. But, to me, I'm excited. I hope that we become a kind of a bully in that division. But we'll see.
Do you think it was the right time for Tom and Dan to go?
Yes. I think like with anything, and with Dimitroff, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, you got to think he drafted Matt Ryan in his first year, and really, reality is when he came in, the team was a shit show. Let's be honest. The 2007 season, we have what should have been our premier quarterback in his prime going to prison. We have a coach quit mid-season, which is unheard of. I don't know if that's ever happened, honestly, besides our team in that year. Like a coach just, hey, guess what? You guys figure it out. I'm quitting.
He didn't even say that, though, did he? Just post a nice letter through their lockers. Well, what an absolute snake he is.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. So it's hard for me to sit and say anything negative towards either one of those guys. Dimitroff, because like I said, to come in and, I mean, you got to think he's won 2 executive of the years in that time span. But like anything, fresh blood. It's hard. It's hard to hold on to having that same, coach and GM for a long period of time and be successful. Patriots obviously do it, but
I think the dynamic needed changing, really, didn't it? I think we just hit a lull where we were just depreciating year on year, and after coming off a Super Bowl and going downhill, really, if you hit a Super Bowl the next year, you should be going for it again, and so on and so forth. And the same as you in that I really like Dan Quinn as a guy and everything like that, and I like Tom in the most part, but at some point you just stop getting a reaction out of your players, and I think that's the point that it hit. So I think it was time for it, really.
I disagree. I think the time should have been before the pre-season. I think Arthur Blank put himself into a situation where All right, we won the last few games of the previous year, but
Yeah.
I think Arthur should have pulled the trigger then and started off a new season with fresh blood, which we're doing this year now.
Yeah.
I think one season too late.
I suppose it's just finishing 6-2 the year before last that kind of gives you a second chance, doesn't it? Because if you started last season just gone in that form, then
Yeah.
you're pushing for the playoffs straight away, aren't you? So it's a bit of like an on the fence one.
Yeah.
Moving on to the new era a little bit more then, and draft and everything like that. What are you looking for? What's your goal?
I believe in the Patriot way. You take the best player that's on the board. Or in our sense, for me, I want a defensive end, or that's what this team lacks.
Yeah.
I actually got into a debate on the actual Atlanta Falcons Instagram.
Oh no.
Months ago, because everybody is so high on Justin Fields, and I understand that you're taking somebody that's obviously a Georgia native, but this team has not had a pass rusher since Ron Abraham. Let's be honest. Yeah, Vic Beasley had one season, but when the offense is jumping out like they are at that time in 16, it makes other teams one-dimensional. Then you can tee off. I mean, we got to see that firsthand. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think the Chiefs are so successful. It's not necessarily that defense is that great. We got to see that in the Super Bowl. It's just normally they jump out so quick in points that it makes everybody else one-dimensional and have to be a passing team.
Yeah.
Then allows Frank Clark to just do what he does best, which is just come at it, the quarterback at 110 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with it. The problem that I'm seeing is there's no Chase Young for us, unfortunately, in the draft.
Yeah.
Which is like we finally are up there to possibly make that move to have that guy. And of course, that guy doesn't exist in this draft.
Yeah.
I understand the logic with the quarterback. It's very tricky because I mean, for me, out of the quarter, obviously, Lawrence is hands down the best prospect. Nobody, I mean, I don't even why there's even a discussion and other teams are going to see him. I mean, go through his workout is ridiculous. Jacksonville is definitely taking him.
Yeah.
I like, I think it's Wilson out of BYU the best.
Yeah.
But would I take him at 4? I don't know, man. It's just so hard. I mean, and unfortunately last year was so jacked up. One of the things with Fields is I don't feel like we got, because they didn't play a full season. I mean, there's not a great body of work there. So, and you look at the guy that he came in and basically replaced, and it's Haskins. And we know how his career is. It's like, it's kind of a red flag. And I was thinking about this because I knew this would be one of the questions. And ultimately, the draft is just a crapshoot in luck to some degree. It really is. I mean, for every Peyton Manning, there's Ryan Leaf. And actually, there's probably more Ryan Leaf than obviously Peyton Manning. So, because otherwise, every team would be a contender every year.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts? Who do you want?
Go on, Mark. You start, and we'll move down.
I'm more of the opinion that although I see the value in planning for the future from after Matt, so I'm not saying not to take a quarterback in this draft. I don't think we take it with 4th pick. I think there's a lot more value in that draft looking at potentially trading down. I'd like to see Quitty Pie, I think you pronounce it. I'm not 100% sure. Who looks a bit of a prospect, but again, like you said, the draft is a bit of a lottery. My preference would be to draft defense in the 1st round, and I'd like to see if Trask falls, because
Okay.
if he falls, I think he's a prospect that actually could develop over a couple of years under Matt and properly learn to hone his craft a little bit more, rather than doing the this kind of constant quarterback conveyor belt that seems to be happening, where you just bring a young kid in, stick him behind a crap offensive line, just like what happened with Joe Burrow this season, ends up getting beaten up, and has a season-ending injury. I don't think that does much for quarterbacks. I think that's not the right way to do it. So yeah, I think it completely depends on combine and stuff, but I'd like to see us trade back.
Yeah, I'll keep mine short and sweet. I'm going trade back. I'd take something like within the top 12 and then a few picks a bit lower down and maybe a first for next year, whatever position that may be. But I think I'm trade down and wrap it up, because we've got quite a few holes that we need plugging really. And I don't think that we're going to be able to do that with the amount of picks that we've got in at the minute, even if we do get the 2 or 3 compensatory picks that we're probably lined up to get. But yeah, I'm trade down. Rich?
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I think we are very lucky in that we've got a quarterback still playing at a really high level. In Matt, or you can talk about the cap hit and what have you. And you're reading today that Philadelphia are shopping Carson Wentz. So they're going to be looking to possibly trade up, which makes 4th pick even more valuable. So yeah, trade down Micah Parsons for me on the D. And then, like I say, just rack up the picks and bulk out the team. Again, like Mark says, Trask later on to come in behind Matt and learn from Matt, because he knows he can't go on forever, but he's one of the quarterbacks that will bring on his heir apparent, rather than having someone sitting there for 2 years on big money expecting to be a starter. Yeah. So yeah, that's the way I go. I think Micah Parsons I would go for personally, and I think he would still be there at Philadelphia's pick should we do a trade with him.
I'll take that. Definitely.
Actually, he was initially my pick a couple months ago for us. Even at 4 was Mitch. I know, obviously, with him opting out, that'll be a concern. But I guess once the combine happens, then everybody's going to realize just how dominant he can actually be. Hopefully, I mean, so.
I mean, I would have liked Penny Sewell. Sorry, Carl, I was going to say I would have liked Penny Sewell, but I don't think we. I don't think we could take that chance at 4, or even a little bit lower down. I think the main thing is we need to get our defence sorted. Sorry, Carl, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, don't worry. I'm the same as everyone else. I think a lot of UK fans, we have like a chat. I think a lot are for trading down. I think we know what the defence was like last year, and I think a lot of people are mentioning, because Thomas Dimitrov didn't sign first round quality, we need to understand it's a new GM, it's a new head coach behind the first round pick compared to the last 10 years, because he's offensively, he's picked Ridley, Julio, Matt Ryan, very good, but defensively he's not. But they're gone. It's new regime. So
but then again, Cal, he got Grady Jarrett in the 5th round, so
very true.
That's what I mean. You can still pick the later round, and like I said, I would draft a quarterback in the later rounds if one comes up.
I agree.
What's better to learn behind Matt for the next 2 years?
Yeah.
Plus, I think with the amount of teams that want a quarterback this year, people are gonna offer. Like, if they want our 4th position, they'll be offering a lot. And I think it'd be certain offers I don't think you can turn down.
That's what I was saying about the Philadelphia situation. If they do let Wentz go, and from what I can understand as well, it's looking like Indy. It seems like he doesn't actually want to go to Chicago, and they're only going to get a 2nd for him. Our 4th, 3rd, our fourth pick, the third pick, are becoming a lot more valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to just anything free agency wise, have you got anyone that's on the market that you're interested, like you'd take at the moment in time? I know our cap space is this big.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at that because of that.
Yeah,
it's like we're already over the cap, so
Terry's got a big job.
I haven't even looked at the free agents, to be honest. I figured it's going to take this new regime probably a couple years to get everything straightened out realistically.
Yeah.
Unless, I don't know, I just saw literally a thing come across my phone that said that don't be surprised to see some surprise moves by us. And of course, everybody reads into that as us trading Matt Ryan or Julio Jones. I don't see that happening.
No.
I just don't. I mean,
it's dead cap. No one's taking their contracts off our hands, are they? So it doesn't put us in a better position at all, really.
And I think our team's not. I've said this every time, but our team's not a bad team. We're not a 4-12 team like we was. Like the amount of games we was all these blown leads last year, but even the ones that we didn't blow, we were quite close. I think some only like 1 and 2 score games, so they're not the 4th worst team in the NFL. Officially, we are, but we build onto that. There's no, yes, that's the one. Yeah. But if we build on a quite good draft, I think it could be a surprising year. I'm not saying we're going to reach Super Bowl or even the playoffs, but it's going to be an exciting year, and I think the whole fan base has just got to be excited. I don't get what's not exciting at the moment.
Josh,
I was going to ask that about free. Sorry, Mark, you carry on.
Sorry, Josh, would you rather address running back in the draft or free agency?
I'm all about building in the draft. I'll be honest. Rarely does somebody come up, in my opinion, in free agency that actually has great value that you can build upon. For us, I look at a great steal for us was getting Michael Turner from the Chargers. When we did and how much we paid him. But deals like that don't necessarily normally happen. Normally, teams are obviously going to, slap a franchise tag on that player and eventually work out a long-term deal. So, unless you're a piece or two you feel away from really competing, in my opinion, building through the draft and maybe it's just because of where I live. So that's how the Packers work for the most part. It works good for them. That's how New England worked. I mean, and look at what they've been able to accomplish for 20 years. I think you get into cap trouble when you start trying to do a bunch of free agency moves and you tie up all this money in one or two players.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. So I would rather see us build and basically, build that way through the draft. Plus you get, I think it's just as important as someone's skill set is, the interview process of a person's personality and how they will fit with the team in the locker room. We've seen it time and time again where you have this great superstar player, but he can poison the locker room and divide it and all this. And that's the other beauty about grooming in the draft is you get that interview process. You honestly try out a player before you pay them a lot of money. Let's be honest. That's kind of now set up. So that's my 2 cents on that. I like the idea of also just having a younger team. I mean, having sprinkled in with maybe some veteran leadership, of high character players. I mean, we have 2 great ones in Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, obviously. So,
I think we've been very lucky, haven't we?
Have you seen any running backs in college that kind of piqued your interest?
What's that?
Have you seen any running backs in college that piqued your interest?
I like. What's his what's his name? Plays on the same team as Lawrence in Clemson. I can't think of his name.
Oh yes.
I'm getting them up now as we speak. What
got out of my head?
Etienne.
Yeah.
Travis Etienne.
Yeah, because I think he might be there in the second round for if we wanted to go that way, he could still be there. Sorry, I stuck with the names. I believe the kid from the running back from Alabama. Yeah, I would love to have him. He's not going to be there. He'll be on, I think, late first round. So that is like the main person that sticks out to me because it was weird because I kept hearing all about obviously Trevor Lawrence. So I was like, I normally don't really watch very much college. But I watched Clemson and actually Travis that's his first name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He stuck out to me in those games. Actually more so than Lawrence did.
All right. Okay.
I think what I liked about Najee Harris is his size. Where I think Travis Etienne's about 5'10", and Najee Harris about 6'2" as well, and built like a brick shithouse. So he's got power, he's got the pace as well, and I think he's the way I'd like to look at. But I agree. I don't think he's going to be there when.
Yeah, I think you'll go early.
When we go for him.
Would you, if there's a scenario of we've traded back, but then trade back, if he's there on say the 31st or 32nd pick, would you then trade back up?
Hassle.
If he was there and you're guaranteed to get him.
Here's my problem with any running back. From what I saw for blocking last year, it really doesn't matter who's back there unless we find Barry Sanders. I mean, and that's why I like Travis from Clemson, because he's not a big guy, but he reminds me of having moves like a Barry Sanders. And one thing about those guys that are, I mean, obviously it's hard to argue with what Derrick Henry just did for 2 years with his size, but guys that are like 5'8", 5'9", they just kind of get lost behind that offensive line. And if they are shifty and can do those one cuts, I mean, they can gouge defenses for big yards. And that would be my logic behind that. And nowadays, nobody, with the exception, I believe, of Tennessee, really has a running back that sits pretty much as a 3-down back anymore. I mean, you're always changing out. So it's like, I think it's easier to find a pounder than a guy that has great vision and that is elusive. That's just.
Well, we had that for a while, didn't we? We had Devonta Freeman because he's only a small guy, and he, like you say, he could do the cuts, whatever. I think, unfortunately, injuries just obviously put pace to him a little bit, but he was a very much a Travis Etienne type of player.
Yeah, definitely. But running back to me is interesting, as we've seen in the league too, that the position is very undervalued right now, which is crazy being a fan for as long as I have been. It used to be the position, that and the quarterback that got paid. It was, Emmitt Smith. It was Barry Sanders. It was Terrell Davis. And now it's like they're almost down to it's pretty low on the pool anymore. I think teams feel like with all these multi-sets and being able to just find different players at value that can play, their skill set. So you might have a guy that you're bringing in that's short yardage, and then we have another back that'll do all the receiving stuff. And I think those days of seeing that one player do it all is pretty much gone. I mean, even Henry, I don't remember seeing very many highlights of him going out and catching the ball. I mean, it's so I mean, running back's a tricky position, and like I said, for me, it's all about addressing the defensive line, because if you can add pressure in the front four, it also makes the back end better, because then they're not stuck trying to cover forever. So if you have pressure up front, you can rush the four. You have an extra guy in coverage and less pressure off your secondary. I mean, that's the reality. So to me, that addressing that fixes almost, all three levels of the defense if you can do it and pull it off.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, so out of the free agents, out of the Falcons free agents, who would you want to keep?
Oh, hands down Neil, and just hope that he can really just stay healthy.
Yeah.
To me, yeah. I mean, and obvious is Koo's free agent too? Okay, that's a no-brainer too.
Not for long. Not for long.
No way.
So, yeah, that's going to happen. But I think that the other guys, Neil, hands down, would be the one that I would want to keep. I just feel like if he can stay healthy, he can be a difference maker. Unfortunately, he's got injuries for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And from the way you were talking earlier, he sounds like your type of safety anyway. So
yeah, exactly. Come That's usually honestly that's usually the jersey I'm repping is his. But because I just finally got this, even though I ordered it seriously a year ago. No, I'm not kidding. It literally finally just showed up yesterday. I'm like, oh, I gotta wear this. I'm glad that I bought this last March when the jerseys all went on sale when we changed. Now
I would have thought you would have used the cloak of celebrity and your Falcons fandom and spoken with Dimitrov directly at the time.
Yeah, I don't know if he would have hooked me up with a jersey at the time. But yeah,
at least it wasn't a girly one.
Right.
What do you make of the gradient ones?
What's that?
What do you make of the gradient jerseys?
Yeah, it's all right. I actually, it took me about a week to get into the new jerseys. I'll be honest. I like the white ones the best, though. Unfortunately, here in America, I mean, obviously, COVID happened for the world, and it kind of stopped production, and they kept giving us all these excuses, and then of getting them out. But I'm actually now digging the new jerseys.
Because you've got it yourself now, you feel part of it. So
it's just like, I'm used to it now. So.
One of my questions was going to be, I've seen that the Atlanta Falcons have an article on the website that is pictures of loads of your merch that you've got signed and things like that. I don't know when it's from. It's not dated, but there's a signed helmet and a signed ball and loads of things like that. Have you got any stories behind any of those?
Well, obviously, I've been able to go down there for like a decade and go to camp and all that stuff. I think the coolest stuff that I have is they played Minnesota like 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember. And I talked to Matt, and I ended up trading him one of my stage used guitars for the game used jersey that he actually wore in that game that I went to.
Wow.
So, and I have another game used ball that he signed. I believe it was against Jacksonville. So those two are probably the coolest, just because obviously they were used or he wore them. But yeah, I had a bunch of stuff. I had my whole man cave was all done with mini helmets and jerseys and all this crazy stuff. And and then I ended up moving, and then I actually built a studio, and most of it's packed away now. So, but those 2 pieces I have. So
yeah. But any disappointment on my face, I was just jealous. So don't worry about it.
Have you managed to build up personal relationships with any of the players?
Not really. It's kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of different and weird. I got to talk to Matt, like I said, when they played up in Minnesota for a bit, and he was super cool and nice, and I was kind of shocked that he actually played guitar as a hobby, and that's kind of what kind of like bonded about, and then worked out this deal of, hey, I'll give you this guitar for the jersey you're going to wear tomorrow in tomorrow's game, and I mean, so
that's amazing.
Other than that, not really. I mean, so. They're busy.
Gents, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I've got to run. Josh, can I just say it's been an honor to chat to you. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'll speak to you guys soon and enjoy the rest of the interview. Have a good
Thank
day,
you
guys.
for coming on, Mark. Thank you for the merch as well. No, that's awesome. To be fair, I'm pretty much done in my reel of questions that I had anyway. So unless anyone else has got anything, I won't keep Josh for too much longer.
Well, who's your favourite ever player?
Oh, there we go.
Oh man.
Oh, we've had some players as well, haven't we?
I mean, it's really hard to go against Matt Ryan since he gave me a jersey.
Take it back off you.
But honestly, for me, I mean, there's several players, but I'm going Roddy White.
Yeah, we had Brian Finneran on Monday, and one of the things I said to him was that I'd actually done the same to Roddy White as what I did to you, and DM'd him on Insta, and he did say he's going to send him a text and try and get him on. But yeah, he was a. This is what I was trying to say earlier. We've been very lucky in the wide receiver core, and that we've had a mantle passed down from Roddy White to Julio Jones to Calvin Ridley. Yeah. Not just on the playing side, but on the character side as well. Yeah. They haven't got the Michael Thomas attitude, or they're there to help each other out. And I think the Falcons have been very, very lucky in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what you. If you started in the early '90s, then you would have been sort of the Deion Sanders and the start of the whole what's his name, MC Hammer, Too Legit to Quit crew and all that sort of thing, weren't you? You would have been sort of that's when you would have got the interest, and I think that's when the Falcons were a huge name back then as well, weren't they?
Well, they were an entertaining team. Unfortunately, it was before DirecTV, so I only got to catch a few games, and it seems like they were always, when those games were aired, they were against the 49ers, who were like dominating at that point. So it was like, oh, cool. Nothing like watching your team and you got to go against, Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. Luckily, we did have Deion, and at least one of those games we won. So, I believe actually Deion had 2 interceptions in that game, but yeah, I mean that was an interesting time and a fun time with that team. It was just a different energy. It's hard not to pick Deion and because I think he's the best corner ever to play, but I can't pick him as my all-time favorite Falcon because he abandoned us and went to a division rival and won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, it was very similar to the beginning of the 2000s as well, wasn't it? With the team, it was when Michael Vick obviously came in. It was an exciting team to watch, and it seems like every 10 years or so, we sort of explode. And I'm hoping that with the start of another decade, we might actually do it this year as well.
Yeah.
It'll
be interesting though, because my question would be, do you think that this team could be a contender? Or do you think right now we're filling a void for the next team? Like, are we – I mean, it's hard not to say as much as nobody wants to say it, but, I mean, Julio Jones is in his 30s. Matt Ryan's, 36, 37. Granted, Brady just won a Super Bowl at 50, but I mean, but we'll get back to that. Though that's having that great offensive line and great supporting cast. So, my question to you is the team, the face of the team that we have now, can they contend, or do you think that we're in a transitional period for that next boost of energy? What, like a Deion Sanders, like a Michael Vick? That will probably be a quarterback. I mean, honestly, down the road.
I think we've all got different opinions for this, especially you, Rich. But I'm thinking that we're still sort of in win now mode. I still look at especially our offense, and think that's better than most other teams on paper. I know it's not performed that well. Maybe it's coach, maybe it's playbook, maybe it's a combination of things, but like shore up that O-line a little bit, and you're like exciting players up top with Hurst and Ridley. And I know Julio's getting on a little bit, but he's still an unbelievable player when fit, if you can keep him fit. I think we've got a lot of talent there. So I think if we plug the gaps this year, we're still, I'm not going to say Super Bowl, but I think we're still in our head. That's what we're going for. I don't think it's a full rebuild yet.
Go.
I'm sort of similar to Danny. I think one, with the management and staff will know on draft day exactly what they're doing with that fourth pick. We will know what they're thinking straight away. But for me, I think a bit with Danny. I think if we add to it, Matt Ryan's still, like what Tricky said, Matt Ryan's still performing, and he can perform for the next couple of years if you improve the O-line. You've got Hurst coming in, who's young, who had a productive year last year, he looked good, and I think if you use him more, he'll be even better this year. Ridley's been insane for his first 3 years, and he's only just going to get better. Yeah. Matt Ryan's doing what he's doing. If we add a running back to that situation, I think the offense can only get better. It's just the defense part of obviously the ball. But if we address a lot of that in the draft, I don't think it's like Fowler as well. Fowler's obviously had a poor season last year, but with a new regime, look who we've got a defensive coach. If he can't, he's gonna shove them players. He can do. If it's one guy who can make this defense better, it's gonna be him. So I think win mode kind of. I think we can win, or we can still do well. But I think it'll all depend on day one of draft.
Yeah.
I don't think Dante Fowler's going to be there next season. He's going to be a cap casualty. I really think he will be. I don't think we can afford to keep him. We've got other needs that need filling. Especially, I think we're going to have the lowest amount of contracted players going into pre-season. I think we've got about 30 players. My view is if we can keep Matt Ryan upright, we can outscore most of the teams that we'll come against. The defense has always been a bit shaky, even right back to when we got to the Super Bowl 4 or 5 years ago. We were just outscoring scoring teams for fun. I think the problem we have for the last 2 years is Dirk Cutter and his vanilla playbook, and I think with the weapons we've got, Matt Ryan is still playing at a high level. You've got Julio, you've got Calvin, Russell Gage, Hayden Hurst. We've got weapons right across the board. Even Todd Gurley, if he was here, I think would be a different player next year. And I think we can just outscore most of our opponents. We still, obviously, like I say, we still need to rebuild the D, but I certainly think in the next year or so we can definitely contend and playoff bound. I really think that. I don't know what your thoughts are, Josh.
Well, I'll go back to Cal. I agree. I think the draft, that what they do in the first round, whether it's trade back and who they draft, will really tell us kind of the direction of what they're thinking. Obviously, we know with the contracts of Jones and Ryan, we're kind of handicapped right now. So that's where I'm kind of at. It's like I do think that we're a good team. I think they're way better than what the record was, obviously, last year. Yeah. But my thing is are we just holding on to get through those guys' deals? Are you going to set up all the pieces elsewhere?
Yeah.
And I mean, at wide receiver, it rarely does a team have two number ones. Let's be honest. I mean, it normally never, ever happens. We actually do if Jones is healthy. Is it going to suck when he's gone? Obviously, absolutely. Can Ridley fill his shoes? In my opinion, to a point. I mean, the thing is they're two different styles of receivers. So I mean, it's more than just catches and yards and touchdowns. It's also the rest of their game. I mean, I've seen Julio and run block and literally level people. I mean, so with that being said, that's where I'm at. I think it really goes back to the draft. I mean, that day one and what they do day one, I think will tell us kind of what the direction they're headed.
Yeah.
So I don't know, unless they, like I said, some crazy thing happens and they end up trading one of those guys by some chance. And I know nobody thinks it's possible, but as crazy as everybody wants to talk about Matt Ryan's base pay for the season, when you go across the boards and see what everybody else is making and some of the other guys, what they make that aren't even nearly as good as what he is, it's not that crazy. So if you're a contending team, I keep going back to San Francisco. I mean, his best season is in that offense. They are, once everybody comes back, obviously their defense got, destroyed by injuries this year. Once they get everybody back, I mean, that team is ready to win a Super Bowl. Their problem is the quarterback position. I mean, let's be honest. So I don't know. And now I'm intrigued by what this press conference, actually, after we get off this, I want to read what was said today because, like I said, I only caught a quick liner on my phone that said that there was going to be all these crazy surprise moves.
Yeah.
So maybe that's one of them. I mean,
I think with Julio though, we wouldn't get a first for him if we tried to trade. We'd get a second and a third, maybe, and then $38 million worth of dead cap. And are the players that you're going to draft with that second and third pick going to be worth Julio's production and the $38 million that we've got to take as well?
Well, and I'll go one step further with him. Also, the leadership that he brings to the locker room and to the rest of that young receiving core. I mean, you talked about Michael Thomas, and he's going to show these young guys what it takes to be elite and how to carry yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think, in some ways, you can put a price on that. And at this point in his career, I personally think that he should have the right to be able to retire as a Falcon.
Yeah, I agree.
And that goes back to what I was saying about Roddy White. Roddy White had his first couple of years were a little bit wayward, and he didn't look like, and all of a sudden it sort of clicked for him, and he's passed the mantle to Julio and his characteristics and how to handle himself and how to hold himself. And Julio's now taken that to Calvin, and Calvin will then take that to the next. And I absolutely 100% agree. His demeanor means more to the Falcons than a second and a third that they might get for him.
Yeah.
Is it similar with Matt Ryan though? Is in if you remove Matt Ryan now, which I can't see happening anyway, but then you got the dead cap, but then where's your quarterback? So if you draft then a fourth with your fourth pick, put him into our O-line and he gets sacked. What, like Mark said, he gets sacked 45 times. Look what happened to Burrow this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
you wouldn't do it. No.
I think the logic would be it would have to be one of these mobile quarterbacks, which then I'm not a fan of, I'll be honest. For one, it's not necessarily the game itself. It's the simple fact that these guys can only play that way for so long. I mean, even Mahomes, I mean, look how he's mobile, but he's always looking downfield to throw. He'll only run when he necessarily needs to, where there's nobody open. Versus, with Jackson. I mean, it's like I feel like with Jackson, they've designed this offense where it's like it's so much option and stuff. It's like is he the running back or is he actually the quarterback? Because half the time his rushing yards are more than his passing yards. And I mean, so
he's definitely a Michael Vick number 2, isn't he?
Yes. It's still a little bit early. I feel Vic was a little bit more accurate, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
I think Vic evolved his game as well. Obviously, once he'd come out and he started slowing up a little bit, his game evolved and he turned into a bit of a more of a all-rounded QB as well.
Yeah.
I think that's what Lamar has to do, doesn't he? I think you look at running backs throughout the league. Some of them last 5-6 years max. Lamar's getting hit way too much for a quarterback. Like he's getting sacked, but then he's always getting hit because he's running into brick walls a lot. It's where he's got to change his style to become to be in the league until he's 38, even 35 at the way he's going, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Well, we had this conversation the other day in another show where we were saying, yeah, mobile quarterbacks probably get you off your seat more and excite you a little bit more. But you think about the stability of your team, and if you've got someone like that risks injury every single week, then can you really afford to take the gamble? And at the minute, if Matt Ryan was to get injured, we'd be in tatters. And I know he doesn't play that style, but your quarterback's your key in your team. So I'm more of someone that's just throwing it into the pockets and throwing you deep balls and things like that personally, even though it's maybe not quite as exciting to watch on the face of it.
Yeah.
If you could have any quarterback from any NFL team to replace Matt, what current quarterback would it be?
Mahomes.
Yeah, that's the only person that to me that you could debate that with would be Watson. But as of right now, I'd still take Mahomes. But Watson would be a close second. And it's not really, in my opinion, fair because, let's be honest, the Chiefs are a way more talented team.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a wide receiver that averages what, like 25 yards? I'm just going to line up and I'm going to just, it's 99 go or whatever. It's like, good luck trying to keep up with me. And you have a tight end that is arguably the best tight end in football right now.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So I think it's those two. I think Watson is closer to Mahomes than what people might think because of the talent that you're surrounded by. I mean, you have to also put that in perspective. I would have gone to Deshaun Watson for the romantic side of it. Yeah, I know there was a moment for us Falcon fans. We're like, "What, Watson? Where?"
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, reality hit us.
Yeah, although I mean, stranger things have happened. Like you said, Tony Gonzalez is John Abrams, and we managed to bring him in, but no, he may play for us later, much further down the line. But I would love to see Deshaun Watson as a Falcon. I think we're the lucky side of it. He's actually a very, very good player as well.
Yeah. It's not just the romance, is it? He'd definitely be a top.
Do you think he's definitely moving?
Oh God, yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, I think those ties have been well and truly severed. I think they're long gone now.
Right, you guys think that Watson will get traded? I think.
What? Sorry.
I think the organization, you don't draft the guy, have him in his prime at his skill set and go, guess what? We're just going to trade. I mean, and if you do, what is he worth? Like 5 number ones? I mean,
I think the problem is his character though. So hypothetically, if they do keep him, what if he just I hope he doesn't, because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy, but what if he just lays down tools and just goes, nah, not for me, half-arse his games or doesn't perform the same and stuff, then you're spending all that money on someone that's not up to the level. But like you said, that's a lot of first-round picks. That's first-round picks for about 10 years.
Yeah, but this is the Texans we're talking about. I mean, let's just give DeAndre Hopkins away here, for sweet fuck all, pardon my language, but this is the Texans. They'll just give anyone away for pittance. So it wouldn't surprise me if Deshaun Watson goes for a 4th of a bag of crisps, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
I love it.
They are a car crash organisation. That is John Easterby. He's just poisoned the whole team from top to bottom. So they're a mess, and Deshaun Watson will be gone. Where he's going to go, I can see possibly maybe the Jets.
Yeah.
I can't see much more than that. I don't know.
Tight one. Go on, Cal.
Before we can finish in the next 5 or 10. So last year's draft, so obviously AJ Terrell. What's your opinion about him? What was your opinion straight away? Because everyone was a bit like, oh, all right. But I think last year he stepped up, and especially the secondary that got absolutely battered. I think he improved every game.
I love the pick. So I thought, here's the interesting thing. I know there was a lot of discussion of possibly would Henderson fall to us or would we move up to grab him?
Yeah.
Now, and I know Terrell took a lot of heat from the fan base of being drafted. I absolutely love the pick. I know that everybody wanted to analyze one game that obviously was not great for him, but let's be honest. He was against a guy that made everybody on every Saturday that he plays against look bad, and is probably going to be a top 5 pick this year.
Yeah.
So to judge one guy off one game just because it was, obviously a huge game, it wasn't all him. And I love the fact that he just kept lining up, and by his body language, it was like, you know what? Yeah, you've gotten this, you've beat me on that, but he just kept competing. And to me, like I said, we get back to character, and ultimately, I mean, going off of however they do the rankings of players. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a better rookie season than Henderson.
And a Cuda.
Yeah, and him. So I think we ended up getting a position of definite need and a player. I think that'll be an all-pro for years to come. I think.
I agree.
I bet you didn't have the same sort of opinion the year before, though, when we've got Lindstrom and then traded back into the first again for McGarry. I bet you were about a few choice words may have been coming out of your mouth then.
Actually, that I was like, are we reaching? I mean, is that a reach for position of need at that point? I think for me, out of all of the draft stuff, and it's easy for us now to look out and go, how the hell did you take Takk McKinley and not take TJ Watt? I mean,
I watched that draft and what are you doing? Why have you not gone for TJ Watt? I mean, I don't know if you watched that draft that day, but I mean, it would have been about 3:00 in the morning over here when we picked, and I wanted to throw something through the telly.
That to me was the one that I questioned the most. It was just like, I was like, what did they see that obviously that we didn't, so, and growing up, like I said, or, my family, like I said, are diehard Bears fans. That Takk McKinley to me is like the equivalent of Trubinsky for them. It's like, you could have had Mahomes, you could have had Watson, and you traded up Trubinsky. Well, we could have had TJ Watt, McKinley. And on top of it, like I said, it's a crapshoot anyway in the draft. My thing is it really surprised me because I know being around the organization of how important character is. So to see him and the way that he conducted himself over the last year really kind of shocked me that we would have even drafted him to begin with. I mean, because I know the interview processes are very in depth. So I'm surprised that they didn't pick up on that, but shit happens.
Yeah. Did you cop much grief for the result last season from your family?
Oh no, I mean, I'll be honest. I really needed that Bears win. But at the same time, they all know I'm sick of hearing about 1985. Give it up. I mean, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
It was a great team. There's no denying that. But
I can still. I mean, even like I say, I started supporting '87. Got into the NFL in '87, and even Walter Payton was still at '85, and was still on everyone's lips. And for God's sake, please just let it lie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And soccer. Do you follow soccer?
No, only the NFL and the NBA. I mean, I'm back into the NBA because my team has LeBron James now. So we went through a 10-year thing where it was pretty painful.
So you're used to that. You're a Falcons fan.
Well, the Lakers have won like 18 championships.
Yeah.
I mean, when you grow up and you have Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then you have, obviously Shaq and Kobe.
Yeah.
And that, but now we're back. We got LeBron. And so yeah, I mean.
Love it.
But no.
Have you tried?
And I call it football because RTM and our old sound guy were British. So they would always say, don't ever call your sport football. It's football. Our sport is football, as it is for the rest of the world except for the United States.
Yeah.
There's an argument to be made.
I call it proper football.
Did you ever try to get any of your bandmates into the Falcons, or do you just give it up as a lost cause?
Nah, none of them are really into sports, so they'll watch. I mean, Johnny Chow is. I guess I take that back. Johnny Chow kind of likes football. He's a Buffalo Bills fan because that's where he's from and still lives there.
Yeah.
And it's a blue collar town, and they love their Bills, and I'm happy for him that their team's on the rise because that fan base, just like Cleveland, it's crazy. I mean, but the fans deserve to finally have some winning. I think what was it, like the Bills hadn't been in the playoffs for like 25 years, basically since Jim Kelly retired or something.
Yeah.
I was like,
do you watch the 30 for 30s? Because there was a 30 for 30s on the 4 years they got to the Super Bowl and lost every single one of them.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely fascinating. But they're probably the only franchise that have gone through more than what we have, to be fair.
Actually, though, here's an interesting thing. The Minnesota Vikings of the 70s also lost multiple Super Bowls in a row. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Purple People Eaters.
Yeah.
What the defense was. But, yeah, the Bills, to me, there's a perfect example about possibly having that Super Bowl hangover and it just getting into your own head because they very easily – I mean, you can make the argument that they should have won the first one against the Giants. If Norwood hits the field goal, they win.
Yeah.
And does that set up the approach for the other Super Bowls? I mean, I think the only Super Bowl they really lost – I mean, one of those Dallas ones was a beatdown. I do remember that. I mean, but I think after that, the other ones were there. They were in their reach, and that one other – the second time they played Dallas, I thought that they were actually going to win. And then Thurman Thomas fumbled. They were ahead, I believe, all the way into the third quarter. Thurman Thomas fumbled, and it changed the whole momentum of the game. And I think they all got in their heads, and it became like a different team out there. It was weird.
Yeah.
So I had one of my close friends is a Cowboys fan, unfortunately. But so I was watching that with him. And, I just remembered he was nervous. I was like, they're going down. The Cowboys put on that. And damn Emmitt Smith.
It sounds very, very familiar, though, doesn't it? Leading all the way into the third quarter.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things next year. I think as soon as we have a big lead, and I think if we overcome that big lead, I think that's a massive, even if it's the first game or the third game, I think that's a massive thing throughout the organisation, as in a mentality thing, because it's a mentality thing since the Super Bowl, especially last year. If we overcome we've got a big lead and we go on to win it and even have more points, I think that's a big thing, and I think that might be on the players' minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're quite lucky, though, in the fact that Arthur Smith is very much a West Coast playbook, the same as Carl Shanahan tree. And I think that's only going to benefit the offense that we've got. Like I said, with Dirk Cotter's, he was very vanilla, very boring. Everyone knew where he was going to run second straight through the middle. And I think that's where, and obviously Dean Pease as well is renowned for his defense. This is why I think we're going to be a totally different team. I think the whole mindset's going to be totally changed, and I think it's going to be really, really exciting. I'm buzzing for it. I can't wait.
Yeah,
definitely. I think that's one thing before we wrap up. I think that's one thing is in whatever we do in the draft, whatever happens in free agency, just get behind the team and enjoy the season. Because a lot of fans I can see a lot of fans would be like, "Oh, we didn't draft a quarterback." But if we draft a quarterback, I'm all for it. As soon as they make that decision, I'll get behind the team no matter what. Whatever decision we make, get behind the team. It's a new start. We wanted the new start, so get behind it.
I agree. Right, just before we call it a night, I don't know if you have anything that you want to promote or anything like that, Josh, or any. It's you don't have to, of course. It's just
no. This is all about just talking football and having fun. No promotion.
You know what? Out of all the chats that we've had, I mean, Brian Finneran was fantastic. It was an honour to speak to. Tonight is just been the most fun. This is the most enjoyment I've had doing one of these. Genuinely, it's been brilliant. I really loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. We'll have to do it again, maybe before the season starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
or after the draft, so we can all grade the draft.
Tell you what would be a good one is if we got you on with Brian Finneran.
We could do that. We could get a few, because we've had Chris Draft and Kynan Forney and Chuck Smith and people like that. So I'm sure we could get a few people on all at once and talk a bit of ball and run it down. So that'd be good. That'd be awesome. But for tonight's show, we'll wrap it up. We'll say bye. We'll cut the show off and we'll keep you on for an extra minute just to say thank you off camera and everything. But thank you everyone that's been watching live and for all your comments on the side and everything like that. Thank you, Josh, for coming on. It's been awesome for so many reasons, music and football. It's the best of both worlds. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and we'll be back probably next week at some point with a new guest. So we'll see you all then.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.